here in Oxford, England's famous university city, around 90 kilometres northwest of London. We're about to begin a self-guided walking tour to explore some of Oxford's places of interest. We started here in Broad Street, in the north of the city centre. We're currently outside the Clarendon building, which became the home of the Oxford University Press when the building opened in 1713. But since 1989, the building has been used as offices and meeting rooms for the university's libraries. Behind us on the other side of Broad Street is Trinity College, which is one of the 39 self-governing colleges that make up the university. Very close to Trinity College is the flagship branch of the famous Blackwell's bookshop, and next door to that is another place that's popular with visitors, this one dating to at least the beginning of the 17th century. But turning back again to the Clarendon building, we see that it stands next to the Sheldonian Theatre, the university's major venue for degree presentations and other important ceremonies. The building is protected from the street by these rather forbidding-looking stone busts of classical scholars. The Sheldonian was designed by Christopher Wren and took 5 years to build, beginning in 1664. It was named after Gilbert Sheldon, who was the Archbishop of Canterbury and Chancellor of the university at the time, and was a major financial backer of the project. We were fortunate enough to have an invitation to a degree ceremony. And now we're inside the building. The head porter signals to the procession when the hall is ready, and the procession enters.
I gratiae confessae sunt, et sic pronuntiamus confessas.
Domini, Most nemini ad obsvalendum omnia statuta, privilegia, consuetudines et libertates istius universitatis quatenus ad vos spectent.
Domini, ego admito vos, ad gradum baccalauricum in medicina.
To take the
Just a few minutes' walk from the Sheldonian, at the junction of New College Lane and Cat Street, we find a landmark that is well known from many television shows and movies set in Oxford. This is the bridge linking two parts of Hertford College on opposite sides of the lane. The bridge was designed to fit in with the surrounding architecture, but is in fact relatively recent, having been built in 1913. The Sheldonian is clearly visible from this side of the bridge. Walking a little further along Cat Street, we find the Bodleian Library, which is the university's main research library and the second biggest library in Britain. The library is named after Thomas Bodley, an old fellow of the university who married into a fortune and funded the refurbishment of the existing library. Outside the main door is a statue of William Herbert, who was the Chancellor of the university at the time and was a major benefactor of the library. Continuing south along Cat Street, with history all around us, we reach the Radcliffe Camera, which takes its name from the Latin word camera, which means room. John Radcliffe was a graduate of Merton College at the university and became the private physician of King William III and amassed a significant fortune. On his death, he left a major legacy to the university, which among others was used to fund the Round Library building and the infirmary in Oxford that bears his name. And now, leaving the Radcliffe Camera, we enter the nearby Brasenose College through the Porter's Lodge and into what is known as the Old Quad, with the Radcliffe Camera looming high above the Porter's Lodge and main entrance. Here we find the Brasenose sundial, which is painted on wood and was installed in 1719. If you time your visit carefully, you may be able to join a guided tour of the college, which is highly informative. We're now in one of the dining halls, emblazoned on its walls with paintings of some of the college's luminaries over the centuries. Here is Samuel Radcliffe, who was a significant benefactor of the college and was its principal in 1614. No visit to Brasenose would be complete without a visit to its magnificent chapel. The current organ was installed in 1973 and is housed behind this impressive facade. The timber for the open hammer beam roof of the chapel was reused from the roof of what was then known as St Mary's College in 1656. Work on the carved plaster fan vault ceiling was started a few years later. As we leave the college, back towards the Radcliffe Camera, we look across the square towards another college chapel, that of All Souls College. This college is unusual in that it has no undergraduate members among the student population. Continuing south from Radcliffe Square, we make our way towards St Mary's Church on the north side of High Street, which is well worth a visit. The massive pinnacles on the 13th century spire make it one of the finest examples in England. St Mary's is the university's own church and was the centre of the university at the beginning of the 13th century and was used for lectures and for the award of degrees. For those who can manage the 127 steps to the observation tower, it's well worth the extra entrance fee to get a bird's eye view of the city. And the first view we see when we reach the top is of the Radcliffe Camera in all its splendour. From here it's easy to see what led poet Matthew Arnold to refer to Oxford as the city of dreaming spires. To the southwest we see the spire of Christ Church Cathedral. Turning slightly to our right we see the spire of Lincoln College Library. The spire was originally part of All Saints' Church until the church was deconsecrated in 1971, and the building was later donated to Lincoln College to house its library. We see Brasenose College again in the foreground as we move northwest and get a glimpse of Exeter College Chapel. Looking south, we overlook High Street, or simply the High, as it's known to locals, where we see one of the oldest colleges in Oxford. which is called, appropriately enough, University College, and dates to the middle of the 13th century. We can also appreciate the size of All Souls College, extending from High Street in the south, bisected by the chapel in the centre, to the Codrington Library in the north, where we see an impressive sundial designed by Sir Christopher Wren early in his career in 1658. The Gothic-styled twin towers in the Great Quad were designed by Nicholas Hawksmoor in the early 18th century, who was heavily influenced by Sir Christopher Wren. Looking further beyond All Souls College to the northeast, we see yet another college sundial. This one is in New College and is very recent, having been installed in the 2000 millennium year. Looking south again from St Mary's, we take another look at High Street, and we have an amazing view of Oriel College. Getting down from the tower is very much easier than going up. And when we reach the ground, it's certainly worthwhile crossing the road and paying a visit to the university shop to pick up a few souvenirs. The final stage of our tour takes us from St Mary's Church to Christ Church College, which is about a half-mile walk away and takes around 10 minutes. The simplest route is to walk along High Street to the junction with St Aldate's on the left and walking a short distance along St Aldate's to the college. But we went a different way. Opposite St Mary's Church, running alongside Oriel College, is a narrow street called Magpie Lane. We walked along Magpie Lane to Merton Street, across to Merton Grove and on to Broad Walk. This takes us through part of Christ Church Meadow and is very relaxing away from the traffic, and through the meadow to St Aldate's. The majestic-looking building that resembles a cathedral is actually the Grand Hall of Christ Church College. Looking back along Broad Walk, we see Meadow Building, which predominantly contains accommodation for students at Christ Church College. It's also the entrance for paying visitors to the college. And now we're back at St Aldate's, looking towards the main entrance to the college here at the Tom Gate, which is named after a bell in the bell tower known as Great Tom, the loudest bell in Oxford. If you have time during your tour, a visit to Christ Church Cathedral is certainly worthwhile. As we enter the cathedral from Tom Quad, we see the organ far above us. Just to the left of the organ, we see a majestic painted window by the Dutch artist Abraham van Linger, called the Jonah window, depicting the biblical story of Jonah from the Old Testament. And now, as we move further through the north transept, we find the largest decorated window in the cathedral, showing Archangel Michael defeating the devil in the form of a dragon. Passing now into the north transept, we see the memorial to the 17th century scholar and writer Robert Burton, who had close connections to the university and wrote a famous book entitled Anatomy of Melancholy. As we pass along the aisle to the far corner of the cathedral, we reach the reconstructed shrine of St Frideswide, the patron saint of Oxford, whose image is carved on the side of the vault amid a mass of carved vine leaves. And here we have the high altar, standing in front of an elaborately decorated painted stone screen. We're now in the south transept, passing through the Chapel of Remembrance, honouring the people of Oxford who lost their lives in the First and Second World Wars. Well, this brings us to the end of our tour. Thanks for joining us. And after all that walking, there are many places to reward yourself nearby in St Aldate's. Cheers.